one of the things I was going to point out. I mean, again, I keep making reference to myself as a Venezuelan. I'm Venezuelan, but growing up in Caracas, we felt always closer to a Dominican or Puerto Rican person than to a Colombian or Brazilian. When I was reading through Caribbean transformations, I got to found out as well that their particular story was very different in the sense how they changed from a slave community into a peasant community with the help from the Anglican Church or the church itself. And this was very interesting. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I think that one of the things that really matters in the way those societies took their modern form, the way they are now, was deeply influenced by how important slavery was and how it ended. In the case of Puerto Rico, it was important, but it was not very important. Puerto Rico never had more than 13% of its population enslaved. So the majority population was always overwhelmingly free and overwhelmingly white or mixed, but not African. That is to say, with some African ancestry, but not coming from Africa. And what happened had been that early on, a lot of slaves were imported, and when the enterprises failed, those slaves would be freed. You can't keep a slave if you can't make him work. And so they freed these people, and often they settled and intermarried, and so you had a growing, intermediately appearing population, and their cultural traditions were mixed. Whereas in places like Jamaica, over the course of the plantation history, Jamaica probably imported about 1 million Africans. That's a lot of people. And as a result, there's a very bulking sense of Africanness and of African origins and pride in those origins. That's a very different picture from what happened, say, in Puerto Rico. And even Cuba, which after 1762 imported a lot of Africans and had a very powerful slave system going, even there it was going within a society that was already predominantly white and brown. So again, the picture is quite different. The other thing being, of course, that in the case of Cuba, that was very late. Those big importations came in the 19th century, toward the end, really, of the whole story. And that means that those people remained very African in identity. Let me illustrate my point with one simple statement. Do you know about the Creole languages, for instance, in Haiti and in the Dutch islands? Yes. And in Trinidad and in Jamaica? You know about those Creoles, languages that are in a European lexicon, European vocabulary, but are not really European languages. None of those ever appeared in a Spanish island. What the absence of those languages tells us is that people of color in those places always learned Spanish. They were never so cut off from the majority population that they had to develop a language of their own. That's a very important difference. And this is why the Hispanophone islands have always been more integrated socially than the non-Hispanic.
Interesting indeed.
And this applies to Jamaica.
Interesting. We will touch on that later on when we talk about Haiti and República Dominicana.
Good.
But now, a bit of mento music from Jamaica. Great.
Me no drink coffee, tea, mango time. Care how nice it may be, mango time. At the height of the mango crop, when the fruit them are ripe and drop, wash your pot, turn them down, mango time. Make we go time. Wash your pot, turn them down, mango time.
Mango time in Jamaica. So we continue our virtual trip through the Caribbean, and now we get to Haiti. I think as I'm really ignorant. So Haiti, you spent some time in Haiti. I've never been to Haiti. Always heard stories. Again, that exactly that particular thing you mentioned about the different languages.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about it.
Well, Haiti is a very unusual country for many reasons, not least that right now it's desperately poor, in terrible shape, and gets very little help of the kind that it really needs. But I went to Haiti to study market women because the markets are such a vital part of Haitian life. Haiti began, of course, as the most profitable sugar plantation colony in the Caribbean, and for a while the most profitable European colony in the world. It was enormously important to the French, who got it by treaty from Spain in 1697 and turned it quickly into this wonderfully lucrative, profitable colony for themselves, producing mostly sugar, but soon enough coffee as well and other things. And over the course of its near century, or more than a century, over the course of its plantation life, it probably imported close to 1 million slaves itself. So these were tremendously important centers of African resettlement, and they were in both these cases, heavily African. Haiti revolted against the French, and after a very long and very sanguine revolution, won its freedom and became the second free nation of the Western world. They also provided protection and helped Bolivar, who spent time there under their protection. So they were very much on the side of revolution throughout Latin America, on the side of independence for these new countries. They're very brave. They took part in the American Revolution. Many of them fought on the American side. So these were unusual people in terms of their history. And of course the country was built up by people, all of whom were enslaved. And so their leaders were all people without education, without proper education, many of them illiterate. So the country had a very tough road to hoe. And keep in mind that when it became free, it was surrounded by slave-holding nations, including, of course, the United States and Brazil, who couldn't bear the idea that these slaves that had the arrogance to take arms against their masters and defeat them besides. When Napoleon finally gave up on Haiti, you could say that he had been beaten by them. The Louisiana Purchase would never have happened had it not been for the success of the Haitian Revolution. So this is a very important event in history that has been completely whitewashed by historians. So nobody, like yourself, nobody knows except that they had sorcerers, except that they had, brujos, brujeria. That's all they know. And it's a very interesting comment on the West's success in concealing completely the revolutionary significance of slaves taking their own freedom back by force of arms. So that's where I would have to begin. But Haiti is a perfect example of a country where the African consciousness was for long suppressed in their attempt to become European, to prove that they were capable of being European. But of course, no Europeans would really accept them. And so the people, the popular view of themselves is heavily influenced by Africa, culturally and in every way, in their food and in their religion and in much else. It's a very sad story, but it's also a very inspiring one. I was there to study market women, and I became very good at it. Whenever one of these ladies would have to relieve herself, I would sell her produce until she got back. I had a very good time there. I learned the language well. It's a beautiful language. I lived in the countryside by myself for about a year and got to know the language well enough to write poetry in it, and had a wonderful time. And my only problem was that the government at the time was Duvalier, and that made life a little more complicated. But I think back on that country with great warmth and affection.
Great. Yeah. So we have some rara music from Haiti.
Do you hear the horns in the background?
Sorry?
Do you hear the horns in the background? They're made out of bamboo.
Okay.
They're called vaccine. It's a long thing that they blow into, and they get sounds a little bit like, not like an oboe, but more like a bassoon. and you'll hear that's their instrument. That's the vaccine.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Is this music played during? Is this?
It's Mardi Gras. It's Mardi Gras music. Yeah. They dance in the street. They wear masks. You know, it's Mardi Gras.
Yeah.